Excellent. Right, we're now going to move to item number 8.3, found on page 218 of the report. And if we could just ask staff to, who are going to present that report to, come to the table. I just want to thank councillors and community board members so far. We've been moving through this quite nicely this morning, so appreciate your cooperation. And then we've got Tim. Morena.
Do I have the microphone on?
Tim, have we had you at the table before?
No, this is my first time.
First time. All right, be gentle, team. Be gentle.
Just briefly, kia ora koutou. Sorry, I'm sitting in for James today, who is on a well-needed break. Just wanting to briefly introduce Tim Sharp, who is our new team leader for public spaces and animal management. He's been with us since about May this year, but this is his first chance to speak to you all. So I'm largely going to hand over to Tim, but just to start off with, this is obviously our annual report on dog control policy and practice. If it's all right with you, we can take that as read and then just open it straight up to questions, which Tim will happily answer.
There you go. Tim's going to let us know who let the dogs out. So, nothing further to add, Tim?
No, nothing further to add beyond what's contained in the report. Thank you.
All right, team. So over to elected members. Any questions for Councillor McCann, His Worship the Mayor, and then Councillor McCann?
Checking through the Chief Executive, did you work for the police force before?
Prior to coming to council, I worked for the Independent Police Conduct Authority.
But slightly different, right? Slightly different. Okay, thank you.
Your Honour, it goes to relevance.
Interesting side note. Thank you. Councillor McCann, have you got anything better than that? All right. I actually do have a legitimate question, and it is just regarding the table that had the number of incidents. And again, if I could be really clear, it's not it's a criticism. I'm genuinely curious around what I would refer to as the trend. Now, I appreciate that with increased population, naturally, that what could come with that is increased pet ownership. And looking at the figures, there's no really clear trend of an upward, I guess what I'd call an upward trend of attacks or threatening or wandering. But equally, there's not a downward trend in terms of the work that we're doing. And I think back to sort of the road safety stuff where whether it be nationally or locally, the efforts and the work that we do is to try and reduce harm. And so I just wondered your thoughts on that around whether it's just business as usual and we have the same amount of attacks each year, give or take a few, or whether there's, the work that we're actively doing is trying to reduce the amount of cases, whether it be attacks, threatening, or so forth.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to answer that question. Yes, it's encouraging in that dog ownership within the district is increasing, and yet attack numbers seem to have plateaued. I've only been with the team for a relatively short period of time, as the Mayor has kindly pointed out. I do have previous policing experience, and I'm employing that within the team. So I think we are being more proactive in terms of identifying dog attacks, investigating them to hold dog owners to account to prevent harm to the wider public. Ideally, yes, I'd like to see dog attack numbers tail off. Yeah, that is something ideally we are going to work towards.
Tail off, and I like how you slipped that in there. That was very clever. Councillor Compton.
Thank you. Through the chair, in terms of the disqualified owners in the district, how do you go about confirming that? Are there visits to, presumably we've got their addresses and we go visit them, or do we just sort of, how do we check that? Because presumably they can move and go somewhere else. Do we notify other districts that they are disqualified owners? How does that all work?
Yes, we do have a small number of disqualified owners. Obviously, they have been disqualified by virtue of the fact they have been very poor dog owners. I would like to think that should they ever be in possession of a dog in the future, it would quite rapidly come to our attention and we would be able to kind of react to any suggestion they are in possession of a dog. They are, I guess, passively monitored in that we are aware of them. There are small numbers to keep track of. We perhaps don't actively follow them up, but as I say, if there are any concerns, they, in my limited experience, they rapidly come to our attention for us to take positive action in respect of that owner. We do work a lot with other animal management teams from other territorial authorities. We've had dog owners enter this district, and again, being a nosy ex-policeman, I'm quite keen to find out, what's the history, what risks do they present to Kapiti Coast ratepayers. We do work alongside other territorial authorities. I'm happy to share pertinent information with those territorial authorities if there is a suspected dog or dog owner that may present issues, and the expectation is that that's a two-way street. And as I say, it's a relationship that's worked very well so far in that we've been able to identify problem dog owners early. We've been able to approach them, establish the number of dogs in their possession, whether they're registered, and to ensure that those dog owners are complying with the relevant provisions of the Dog Control Act.
And I guess as a follow-up, in terms of these registers of owners or disqualified owners, they're just maintained by each individual territorial authority. There's no national register, so it's sort of an ad hoc sharing process between different TAs?
That's a good question, and the honest answer is I'm not entirely sure. I believe it is a national register. We have the National Dog Database, which is a resource that we routinely use with a view to identifying dogs, establishing the provenance of those animals if they enter the district and they have an otherwise unknown history. That's a useful repository of information in that it contains pertinent information such as how many infringements a dog owner has received, whether or not they are disqualified or a probationary owner. So that information is available. Yes.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, just before we go to Councillor Elliott, I want to check if Councillor Randall has any, so I don't forget later while I remember. No questions. We'll just give me Altanika if the hand goes up. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you and welcome. I just want to refer you to page 4 of your report under the definitions, children's playground. Just because previously when we've had to have enforcement action and instances of impoundment, the actual size of the definition of a children's playground has been quite critical to the council case, and I was a little bit surprised that there isn't a measurement in this description, but I'm sure it's somewhere else in the documents. Could just George and Jackie will say that I should know this already. I've been here long enough to know it. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking 10 metres as well. Okay. Would it be useful to keep repeating that sort of little information in documents like this when they come up?
Yes, definitely. I'll defer to Jackie's greater knowledge. Thank you, Jackie. But yes, I think that is definitely useful information. Certainly, and we experienced it during the recent lockdown. I thought we were very good at getting messages out to the registered dog owners, such as enforcing the on-lead rule on beaches. So I think we have a mechanism to do that, and anything we can do to improve dog ownership, the responsibility of dog owners, then I think that's a good thing that we should embrace.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holborough.
Hi, welcome to the table. I'm just looking at the number of and provision of dogs classified as menacing, and in the context of total dogs going up by 313, the numbers of menacing dogs have gone up by 78, which is quite a high proportion. But is that because we're identifying more of them, finding more of them? What's behind that rise in number?
I think certainly since I've been with the team, my preference is to have a formal safeguard in place. So if we investigate a dog attack, at the conclusion of that, I will review the investigation file and I will make a determination in terms of what an appropriate outcome is. If there's a suggestion that a dog may pose a risk to others, animals, livestock, human beings, and if there's justification to do so, I will request that a menacing classification is imposed. So that's something that we employ quite regularly now. certainly under my tenure. And I guess the rationale behind that is to ensure that members of the public, their pets, their animals, wild animals are safe, and also to, I guess it's a double-edged sword as well, to protect the owner, to introduce safeguards that compel them to take steps to, say, muzzle their dog while in public. So protecting them from future issues, that's the intention behind it.
Yeah, thanks for that answer. That's really fantastic that work goes on. These are the ones that are classified as menacing by breed? Or what were you referring to the deed part of that?
The deed part, yes. So, remarkably, entering the sphere or the realm of animal management has been a bit of an eye-opener. So, yes, we can classify by deed or by breed. And certainly I've encountered a few dogs that are classified by breed, and they're absolute pussycats. That they don't necessarily, again, in my relatively limited experience, cause us the most issues. It's those dogs that perhaps belong to less responsible owners that are potentially causing us issues that we're looking to take action against.
Thank you. Look, sounds like some very proactive work going on in this space.
Thank you.
His Worship the Mayor.
Have you had a chance to look at some of the case studies in terms of councils, animal control, and the community and the dog owners? There are some cases. One particularly has been huge. What was the dog bowl? Have you had a look at stuff like that to see lessons learned?
I haven't actively reviewed case studies from other territorial authorities. I am aware of other situations that have come to our attention. We've recently housed a dog on behalf of Porirua that had been that was earmarked for destruction, if I can say that. And through incidents like that, we gain a better understanding of what is happening in other territorial authorities. I think there is certainly scope, and I've had conversations with animal management team leaders from as far afield as Coromandel, and I think there's scope on a national basis to try and coordinate animal management as a thing, so that there is commonality between the services that are provided, and there's shared understanding. Lessons learned can be shared and implemented within each territorial authority.
So in a sense, the question I'm asking is if you got in-depth or deep dive into some of the local examples. That one particularly was high profile.
Mr. Mayor, we'd like to keep staff. We don't need to scare them off in their first few months, but
I think he's come. That's why I asked him the question whether he was in the police force before.
if anybody had Googled this job, maybe they might not have even applied if they found what you're referring to. So, look, it's a fair point that, as you know, I always believe you've got to look backwards to understand going forwards,
Yeah.
but let's give the guy a chance, eh?
He's on the police force.
All right, team, I don't see any further questions. And we've got the recommendation 17 found on page 220. Councillor Holbrook has indicated that she's happy to move that, seconded by Councillor Hanford. Right of introduction. It is waived. Open it up for debate. There is none. I'm going to put that to the right of reply. I imagine is waived. I put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against. That is carried. Thank you, Tim. That wasn't too rough.
Look, the chief executive protected him, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, and I'll be sure I research that information before next time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, team. Last agenda item. Just bear with me as my quick links are not working on my documents. I'll just scroll down to the next item. Yep, thank you. Page 263, which is the alcohol licensing report. Just noting, as Catherine comes to the table, that Councillor McCann, as the chair, has an interest in this and is not participating in the discussion. Is that correct? And so just going to hand it over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. Angela, are you going to introduce? Or?
Yeah, sure. Again, just here with the annual alcohol licensing report. So if everyone is comfortable, we can just, again, take that as read, and I'll hand over to Catherine to answer all your questions.
Any questions, team? Just a quick look around the table. Councillor Halliday.
Hey, through you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Catherine. Look, it's more of a general question than anything else. Just, generally, what's the behaviour like in the district of our licensed premises? Is that generally all right, as such?
We have no evidence of any major problems at the moment, but one of the problems we do have is actually getting information from the police on what may be going on. They obviously know more than we do. But no, we don't have any particularly badly behaved premises or issues at the moment.
So this question for me, I note in the report that is attached, Appendix 1, the reference at point number 6 around the public notices and the Antenna app, the work that we've done. There was a request, obviously, through the Otaki community around improved notification of applications. Maybe you just want to talk a little bit to what's been done there to help better inform the public when applications come to council.
Yep, certainly. So this really came about after the Super Liquor Otaihanga application last year, which was granted and then appealed, and finally the decision of the DLC was upheld. But there was a lot of talk at the time that the community weren't aware of what was going on, despite the fact the applicant had met their requirements in terms of notifying the application. So we put in place a few extra ways to help the community become involved. So we now publish the public notices on the council website as well as in the local papers. And those who have the Antenna app will get alerts on when there's a new public notice on the website. We're also working on developing a subscription service so that people can actually receive email notifications about alcohol applications if they're interested to sign up for that. And other notifications from council on other matters. I spoke at length to Rob O'Brien, who works for community law, and he was very keen to work with our community boards to help in any way that he can, which is a more appropriate way for them to get legal advice than from council's perspective. So I'm not sure, I don't know whether the community boards have taken up that offer to get Rob involved, but he's very keen to work with our communities to help them be involved in the process.
Thank you for that. I want to just raise another point that's come up through the representation review, and I might be looking to the Chief Executive to tell me if this is a step too far in terms of what I'm raising. So one of the comments through the representation review was around community boards having more powers and being able to make decisions locally. And there were examples used, and one of them was in Otaki around the local alcohol policy. Now, my recollection of a councillor at the time was that as a council we avoided going there. We would have essentially been the first cab off the rank in New Zealand, and potentially, I think from what I've heard, other councils have been in legal battles with the big entities for some time that have sort of gone first. What could have been the risk there if community boards had chosen to push ahead with that at a local level? And I guess I'm trying to weigh up the difference between the involvement of community boards, access to information and decision making compared to the council that made the decision at the time, and the risk that poses.
I can probably only endorse those last comments you just made. I'd see huge risk because this is a very fraught area, and what you're referring to is Auckland was essentially that most hotly contested LAP process, and of course supermarkets in particular are challenging every step of those processes, and our community boards are in no way resourced to be able to participate in that kind of process in a way that wouldn't put them and us at risk. So I can't really answer the specifics, I'd have to take that away, but generally my instinctive response is I couldn't support anything other than keeping community boards informed about a process that ultimately this council has to make a decision on. our delegations definitely don't go to the space of providing that sort of decision making to community boards. And as I say, I haven't sought advice on this, just responding to you on the spot. I'd be very reluctant to even look at it.
And I guess that's my point around whether, with that request around more powers and responsibilities, there is risk that lies with some of that. Not with all of the areas, to be fair, but obviously that's an example where it could have been quite problematic and expensive.
Oh, hugely, Mr. Chair, and you know, you've referred to yourself, and I have Auckland as an example, but LAPs have not gone well anywhere. Essentially, the sector is saying to the government, this is an awful way to try and get us to manage alcohol use and abuse in our districts. Go and find a better way where you guys take responsibility.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate the response. Just a quick look around before I move on, and I think Councillor Randall's having some technical issues, but I do want to just check with Tanika. We're having some technical issues, not Councillor Randall? All right, so I don't see any further questions. We've got the recommendations found on page 264, recommendation 19, if we could hopefully have a councillor's happy to move that. Councillor Buswell, seconded by Councillor Halliday. Right of introduction waived. Open it up for debate. There is none. I'm going to put that to the vote, assuming no right of reply. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against. Carried. Thanks very much.
Please note my abstention.
Okay, Councillor McCann just noting his abstention. All right. Thank you. So we now move to item 9.1, which is the confirmation of minutes on page 270. Right. Sorry, bear with me, team. Right. Recommendation 1, the minutes of the Strategy and Operations Committee meeting for the 16th of September be accepted as true and correct. Are there anything raised out of the minutes? No. Councillor Buswell. Oh, sorry, Councillor Elliott.
Sorry, yeah, we've got a Kathy Spears, a Kathy Spear at one point. I think it's in the apologies.
Well, she can be sometimes, I think, Kathy, can't you?
She can be.
All right. Other than that, I think Councillor Buswell was happy to move. Councillor Elliott, you happy to second with that? Thank you. No further discussion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against. Carried. And we have no public speaking time. We now need to move to publicly excluded. So do we have someone that's happy to move the go into public exclusion? Councillor Hanford and Councillor Buswell. Can I just check? I see Mr. Mansell starting to pack up. It's only the confirmation of minutes, isn't it? So no need to rush away but you're welcome to if you want to. And live streaming, Tanika, we're now moving. So it's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against. Carried. We're now moved into public exclusion, which is simply the confirmation of minutes, if my memory serves me correctly, for the meeting on the 7th